I shoot myself. I'm keeping it. No, no problem. I also actually like.
Yes. Are we good to go?
Yeah,
we're good to go. Right. Welcome everybody to this meeting on the health education board in public. I'd like to say something at the beginning of the meeting before we go through the following announcements. This is the last board meeting of health education, and I want to pay thanks to the board, that's executive and non-executive colleagues, for the work that you've undertaken over a number of years. I want to pay particular tribute and thanks to the staff of Health Education England for work that many have done for over a decade now. I think there is quite properly a celebration event later today which can celebrate some of the considerable achievements of the organisation over that decade. We've got some of that mentioned in the agenda for today's meeting as well, but I don't think the words can do justice to everything that the organisation has achieved. It's been a tough and challenging time, not least the period from the beginning of the pandemic, where ensuring education and training took place and people were able to complete their education and training through the work that particularly the executive team did during the time that particularly tribute to, and how that work has continued as we come out the other side of the pandemic and work towards delivering our contributions to collective recovery and all that of transformation and reform agendas, while at the same time managing the transition to speaks well of the executive team and the staff of the week. I want to call out particularly what I've noticed about my time at health education is the professionalism, the commitment of staff in the organisation, but particularly delivered in values and behaviour framework which has respect, integrity and compassion to the whole. And as we've got later in the papers today on the staff survey for health education, the fact that the engagement score is maintained its incredibly high level of well over 70% during the period of the transition, I think is short of remarkable. It's a testament to the leadership, I think, that executive colleagues have demonstrated, and your managers as well, frankly, and their managers still in the organisation. And I think that is something that I've not seen before in my time in the public sector. And I want to pay a tribute to each and every member of staff and each and every manager and leader in the organisation. So it's in many respects a sad day, but I hope people can actually continue to be proud of what we individually collectively achieved during that period of the operation of health education. So a big thank you. Big thank you. So if I can move on, can I just, this is a meeting in public, and we have one member of the public here, Brent, who's sat behind many people on the board who know. What you probably don't know is Brent got the 2:30 a.m. board. I didn't think about it. 2:30 a.m. coach from Gloucester to be here. So Brent, you're very welcome. Thank you very much for the support you've been to and it's a new person to over 10 so years. So you're very welcome. Right, so if I can then go on to the agenda, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest different to the paper that we So item 3 is the approval of the minutes of our previous meeting held on the 16th of January. Yeah. Any comments on accuracy on the minutes? Not yet. Lots of changing the minutes. Thank you very much. Are there any matters arising anybody wishes to make that you don't think to vote for the agenda? Thank you very much. So there's right. Next is committee meetings. Next is Living.
Thank you. So colleagues will have a written report with the papers today. I'll just pick up on some highlights. So this is our last board meeting and therefore my last CEO update and a public board, feeling a little bit sad. However, the main feeling is one of pride in having the privilege to lead and be part of HEE these last short 3 years. But more importantly, I'm feeling proud of what HEE and its people have continued to deliver for learners, for the population at large. So I want to put on record my thanks to colleagues on this day. Carry on. So my thanks. You are mine. Carry on. Quickly, my thanks to colleagues. And to all our partners who've made all our work. So, I think it's quite fitting that on this last meeting, I share with you that the news that our board has been nominated for the Medical Research and Healthcare Board of the Year as part of Diversifying Group's Board Award. So I understand that the shortlist of nominations is due to be published soon. We'll keep you colleagues updated on the outcome for HEE. Fingers crossed. So this recognition for me really demonstrates the contribution that HEE continues to make across a range of areas for learners, for patients, for people we serve, right up until the last day of our organisation. So we've already talked about the transformation and transfer for day one readiness, and it is going to be shared in the formal agenda. So I just want to take a moment to recognise the tremendous job our teams have been doing and all of our colleagues in carrying on with business as usual at the same time as having to manage the transition and closing down of our organisation. It has been quite a stressful time for the last year or so. So in the written report, we bring together a number of updates. So I can very quickly just talk about the highlights. Working with learners across professions to understand their experiences. That's the National Education and Training Survey this year. So we can go through that in the discussion. Working with partners to lead transformation within the NHS. For example, we published an update on implementing the top overview recommendations 4 years on. Developing innovative approaches to training and workforce. The Medical Education Reform Programme shows a second productive year for this particular project. I'd like to also highlight our continuing focus on the role in addressing health inequalities through our Rural and Coastal Transformation Programme. And we are already working alongside our new NHS England colleagues to deliver this. So that is a work in progress, which will definitely be embedded in the new NHS England. Also like to just pick out how we are seeking to be the best we can in how we look after, support and develop our own people, especially through this difficult time. I'm really pleased to share that our management development programme, I think we did our 25th cohort, and I was one of the sponsors this year. And it's been so good. I've kept up with it, and I really hope that we can take it into the new NHS England. And we continue to use the Best Place to Work programme to really make sure we stay in touch with how people are feeling and support them during this kind of transition. Again, it's a credit to our culture and commitment to our health and well-being. It's been a really tough time, and that's been really important. Now, I know I have very limited time this morning, and this just summarises a portion of the work that we've done. I just want to say most of us hopefully will be at the event that we're holding this afternoon, where we've invited guests to join us to mark 10 years of HEE, ahead of our forthcoming transition to become part of the new NHS England organisation. Now, at this event, we will bring together colleagues from across health and care sector to reflect on the work that we've done so far, and also to think about our ambitions and challenges going forward. So we've got more than 300 colleagues joining us today from across the health and care sector. And at the end of it, hopefully we will have time to spend together talking about what we've done these last 10 years and what we really want to do going forward. So I look forward to seeing all of my colleagues here at this event this afternoon. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Okay, all right. Thanks very much for that. Committee meetings and updates is item 4, so I think we've got a written report from one of the rooms, but Andrew, you're first with the performance of the
Thank you, David, and thank you. The report is read. I won't go through it in detail. Just to say it's been a privilege to be involved in the BBC over the years, and I've learned you mentioned that from David and his team. It's been a real privilege to see their work being data on performance in there to make a real difference to our real examinations. So thank you for that. The papers where a lot of the issues we will pick up later on in the meeting, such as the performance of the work and the elements of our finance and economics. I think the only thing that I would have to pull out from the rest of it is the slight question, slightly trying to get the data we're looking at from the quality committee. Next report is an increase in leavers, illegally from training. Which is a slight concern, early signal that triangulating with the other things, but noting that there is potentially, we would be potentially to debate this one, and that there will be working with them. I don't think that's just a slight look like the dashboard that we mentioned. So, other than that, I think the debate is fair. So.
Do you want to say anything on the work that we're doing to pick up at that point? There's nothing to go into NHS. So,
I think what something like on BBC, where I think other people have been tied into applications, starts, and so it's going to be detailed how very efficient, but we sort of found what's happening per program. And then we sort of work through what's a lot of readers in the system to provide these communication. Since then, we've had usual conversations with just going around the information to get into the detail of what's happening in each of the policy like program. And we now have the main regions instead of the workshops in weeks. So to hopefully really good practicing, like the South West, and we're quite a lot to understand the capacities and like the possibility so quality of control places. We got that information the first time. I think it was from 2019 to 2023. Be very good. And the last year, our plan is to take this out to the first end. I can put people into the commission. I'm going to put a free diet on that in April. So, to the full description of the population of the Americans.
Is it the central clinical groups? No, when we begin to get into that, the actual dive and that analysis, we're seeing variation in different.
We try to go in to see what's in nursing, what averages, what nursing around 10%. then got some regions that are making the lines, and like the sort of transfer of that, what's happening, just at least to help, and it's the best stuff is to go. And then programs, you see some variation in that.
Sorry, say it again.
Engagement in programs, and
Yes.
quite a lot of community, in most places.
Yeah.
So you won't use it, consider them that spot with anything.
It's going to get a longer than that. There are one or two solutions in there, which are typically the drafting, but you know, because
So they might use
yes, no. That's a really good one. Any more on business integration? Andrew, thank you for your leadership. Next is you, Harpreet. So this is how you committee. What is it? Meeting 3?
Four. And yeah, so thank you, David. So I'd like to start by thanking colleagues for being setting up and supporting on this committee, and also Matt. So this is like the obvious on our final meeting on Wednesday. It's been really quickly shown that the policy being enhanced through those statutory duties will be handed over to see them as we think about how that exposition structure. But just taking the report as read, I think the key things to highlight here, which are that you can see lots of programs that commonly presented to the policy. So the last one you see was the innovation and the work that's happening on digital technology. But I think one thing that was raised, which I think we can point out as we put our wish register together, is using the program memories and potentially as well as having factored that as part of the new setup, because again, there's tremendous amount of momentum and sense of building work, and we're sure that we can continue with the work that's happening. In particular, I think we also have an update on the work that Mark and Beverly and the work and that's the doing stuff that now we're looking to have with funds on that and action funds. And I think on Wednesday this week we'll get a final view on the latest transition in the 6th as part of the restructure. And again, have to come back to Congress and that's what we have insurance that maybe some policy consumption.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Okay. Again, thanks for your work and when you work setting up that committee. People and torture committee. It's not here. Thank you, Mr. Federal.
Well, I'm happy to because I chaired that.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it was a great meeting, and that was also our last one, I think. Obviously, again, thanks to job there. But I think thinking about that, one more that if we need to speak about body work, will continue for a good 6 months after we come into the organisation, then starting building continuing those colleagues that we involved in that. So that's the first thing. So and we've seen a slight increase in the number of people performing there, but I think it's important that how we go through that transition with our conversation earlier about how they space to get really speak out. And the second was the approval of the listing of the data reports. Again, that's part of our duty and which as well. And then the final thing, again, those discussions on annual days in the new committee, but in particular, any outstanding actions that we've had. So we can research so feel very quickly there what issues are and how we know it's
Any questions, comments? And of course, Andrew Foster is not was chair of that. It's trying to be. I was in my thanks to Andrew. John, last but not least, on this.
No problem. Again, like everybody else, we would like to really thank everyone for their contribution to the committee. Over the time that I've been chairing it, similar committees over the years in executive bodies, but I think the work has been excellent, papers excellent, continue to be so, and people's commitment continue to be so. The internal audit programme has been maintained, and actually, we look back, we'll get most of the final papers through to the last meeting, which we've got in 2 days' time, which will clear up a lot of the activities and actions that we would look to be transferred, because of course one of the things is we don't want to lose actions or activities that we need to do in that transition period. But I think the team have worked exceptionally hard to get that list down to a reasonable list, small number, with a small number of actions transferring from our corporate risk registry, if you like, into NHSE's. We had a very good meeting with Jeremy Townsend and colleagues from HSE. I will be attending at least one of their audit committee meetings after the close to continue with some consistency as we go across, to make sure that there is some institutional memory behind some of that transfer as it goes through. But overall, I think we're in an exceptionally good place given the challenges that we've got of transferring actions across. Internal audit reports will be more or less complete, and we're expecting in to be ideal source, which we are hoping will be very good in terms of where we are, times at the moment as well. So I think we're in a really good place, really good outcome for where we could be as we transition across. Good handle of documents. The receivers seem very happy with what they're receiving, and I think we've taken into account all of the actions that we need to go over and be maintained for transfer to NHSPs.
It's a very quick one actually on that, and they were honestly really encouraging. And I met with, and we had the internal audit, from England and our audit committee. And I've been subsequently a lot of work talking with board members and team managers about what needs to be taken forward from some of the work. They showed that to me. Yeah, it's really on. I think I've got good base in the risks on a well featured enough. So it's a continuity, yes.
Very good. Okay, well done. And John, thanks to you for the views on that. And Dara, in terms of auditors, I'm actually in the middle of all of this. We're changing in terms of auditors as well. It's showing a big deal in any organisation. And I think if we manage to put it so thank you. Okay, so that gets us through that. So we can come now to operation delivery and assurance section, and report 23.8 is on the GFC report on enhanced EDR data about document training. So Wendy, are you going to take this? Yeah. I thought this was a really important report, actually. There's a lot of work being done in this area. I think what this is doing is flagging just how much more there is to do, and I don't think we should diminish what has been achieved, whilst at the same time continuing to be ambitious for what more we need to be. I thought this was a very short, punchy report that captured a lot of the work that actually like to make it important. Thanks. Obviously.
Thank you, James. I do think this report's important. It's the first time GMC has done this sort of deep dive. Since about 2015, they have been reporting on variations in some of the set pieces around ARCPs, specialty exam pass rates. But we've been really encouraging, along with our colleagues in the other devolved administrations, to actually take a deeper look at this. And this is UK data, which I think does give us some strengths. And it's important just to remember, and also really important for Lee's ever-extended letter, that we actually have a UK perspective to medical education, which is unique. And I think that does help us in a way in that we share our work in HEE with our colleagues in the devolved administration almost before it's shared anywhere else, because it's a combined collaborative approach. So I think it is a well-written, quite stark report. It says what we know, that there are disparities around achievement, and that the poorer outcomes of UK graduates of Black or Black British heritage are quite stark. The punchline recommendation is that all training organisations need to tailor approaches and interventions to address the correction attainment. HE has been interested in this since we started. So we started with the values-based recruitment. And at the time we began our history, there were 2 medical schools that weren't actually interviewing people for acceptance into medical school. And at the time, we had a gut feeling that was wrong, but we really needed evidence to articulate why. And that's what we've done through our impact on the GMC specialty training survey, which we award against 4 countries input to. So questions started to be asked about the diverse backgrounds of people. And then, of course, with the NET survey, which is, if you like, the triangulation from very young students, some of them are medical students, and you'll see in the report that we've had more than 40,000 responses. This is only in its 4th year, so it's a very young survey compared to the GAC training. But I think the message is that we are doing an enormous amount to broaden participation in all aspects of education. Sometimes not with the fulsome and glowing support of the medical profession itself. And I think that leadership is going to be challenging. I think it needs to sit within the organisation, because it does not sit within the medical profession by and large, because professional organisations, colleges, they are designed to be served with these when you see that's their job. So I think that the thinking around really opening up opportunities for different groups of people to achieve highly within medicine has to be led from an organisation that has a different viewpoint to the professional membership groups. And I would perhaps highlight the next most exciting thing in that space, which is small but is going to grow very big very soon, and that's the medical apprenticeship model. And I think there are challenges for us going forward as to how we protect that model as a genuine offer of widening participation, as opposed to just another vehicle to become a doctor. And I think that is partly what the report highlights, that it's not enough just to be a doctor, it's to be seen as successful and being able to participate in all the areas that you wish. Part of this work, I think, is going to get turbocharged as we come out the other end of this industrial action, which inevitably we will at some stage. And we made great strides in our approach to valuing diversity in enhancing junior doctors' working lives, which is the piece of work that came out of the previous industrial action. We looked specifically at groups where participation fell off during training, so women, people with different abilities, people with prior commitments to family, etc., etc. And that feeds into the work that Dame Jane Davey did on gender inequality and pay gap. And that people accessing our return to training fund, which was something that came directly out of industrial action from the department, are women, and their intention to stay in training goes up if they get supported as they re-enter their training life. The other part of the work from the GMC that I think is really interesting is around college examinations. And of course, we have some really interesting data on this because of COVID. So during COVID, as David earlier said, one of our responses had to be to support the progression of doctors in their training. We couldn't just stop the pipeline, not just for the service requirement, but also for those doctors themselves and their sense of their career being valued and being part of the future. And many of our law colleges are reflecting on just what an exam is there to do. I think it's a really big conversation about the validity of set piece examinations in terms of public assurance and progression in the profession for the future. And I think I would commend it as a piece of work that needs to be done because the standard structure of examinations really isn't going to withstand scrutiny for the next perhaps 10 to 20 years. And the other piece of work I think that we need to reflect on and perhaps take into the new directorate very quickly is that if you really want to look at the data and the evidence around fairness, and it seems to me that this is about justice and fairness as much as anything else. And you can talk about it in terms of inequality. If you want to talk about it in terms of fairness, we have shown that the recruitment processes we put in place during COVID, which were remote and did not involve lots of consultant interviews as traditional, they are fair on every measure. And yet we are being pulled back into a more traditional approach with consultant input. That is a really big challenge for us going forward about how much do we want to move away from traditional approaches which are highly valued by the profession and by the doctors themselves who are being recruited to something that in terms of the evidence is absolutely the very sort of doing. And that space is where I think good professional organisations work, and that's what we need to do. So I think this is a very useful report. It's the first time GMC have taken this approach. We have been very involved in this, and I would hope that in the future, the directorate will continue with some level of engagement.
Questions, comments?
Thank you, Wendy. And to actually see the GMC draw around some of these challenges and issues, I think it's really helpful. I just wondered, in terms of the new management, where I can actually focus around looking at library participation, also different approaches to delivery, how that can be drawn together and actually then look back into the sector. So if you look at the HEI sector as a whole, attainment gaps in data is it's evident in our issues. But actually learning from where things are getting better, and how that could feed back into even the accreditation of really accreditation programs that have been used critical. We just wondered where the new directorate could actually play a role in that.
Do you want to continue your second question?
Let me, thank you, I was somewhere else. And asked, anyway, from that. Sorry, please, and then I'm.
Thanks. When you get great, thank you for bringing this. On the specialty exam last year, I think that was quite a good thing that actually was the example gap between understanding. I think while just we should that without making these sessions. We feel that these will work to raise and closing the gap. I think where's our responsibility? Because again, through this work, we are the most likely organisation to be pushing some of this and making sure that the gap is closed. Why are things that we need to do into that?
Thank you.
Thank you. What I think I'm going to say probably was an enormous surprise to you in many ways. But I think that what we're doing is absolutely the right thing. That we're only hitting a part of the problem. I think a bigger part of the problem is the professional self-understanding of professional medicine. And there's a lot of literature out there that shows that the intrinsic way in which a profession tells people how to behave is more influential than intrinsic training that is added on. So how do we get actually into that? And I think we can. And I think there are one of the examples of well-qualified surgeons turnaround of women in training. And I think while it's not perfection now, they made massive advances in the profession. They've decided that this is something that's wrong and that they need to change it. And so I'm just wondering again, how is it that we can engage more with professional bodies to actually come to a better understanding of what the purpose of the profession is, in order to that we don't end up with self-sustaining hierarchies that they are actually subconsciously made.
I slight pause when I was trying to connect the earlier stuff we got out to with this. And also some work that Poppy and Soraya and myself have been doing with long-term body non-executive directors to lead on EV. But actually, the Hargreaves leadership, we brought in a number of people from private sector organisations, retail, commercial organisations, banking sector. It's very interesting how far those organisations have pushed the equality directive improvement, just how successful they've been. In fact, I would argue they've been more successful in the public sector. And I think one of the things that they've done is make a business case for why this is a good thing to do, not just the moral and ethical case for why it's the right thing to do. And I, in my own mind, am convinced that any narrative needs to be about open business arguments as well as the money. It's got to be why this is good to retain a diverse workforce as well as lights on the criticism. So I think personally, some use of examples. I think there's a lot that we have still to achieve this GSE report. So I think and it was quite sort of very low reports and so on. So, but I'll come back to this on the comments that you've made.
Thank you really much for comments. The new editor schools groups really having and we have thought and groups. I mean, meet them regularly, and we support their data analysis and we support all of their WP activities. And there is about to be a conversation, I think, in the BMJ that there is certainly this comes around, which is the independent review commissioned, or whether they have met the wider participation expectations that we faced, and they have not only met, we have exceeded them. And we had a reputation of one of their missions presenting this to international conference this summer. So that will be published soon, we will share that. So you're right, so they're a very powerful group. And they do leverage against some of the intrinsic professional behaviours we see from other local schools. So I would commend them as a group that needs to be nurtured as we go into the organisation. In terms of the specialty exam pass rates, the specialty exams are really interesting that they're culturally deeply important to the colleges. So I was vice president of my college in my annual exams, and they are frankly huge amongst those because most of us have significant international medical graduates taking these exams overseas. But things are changing, and we are, we're expert educationists, and your colleges don't always have access to that. And I do think we need to keep that sense that the experts in education, ranging from those people experts in assessment through to experts in delivery, what's the purpose of education for the NHS? I think that's something we need to keep close to as the new organisation develops. And of course, the intrinsic behaviours. I think there are two ways of working this. First of all, that's to maintain the relationships we've built over the last decade with your colleges. To the extent where changes in leadership are less the ebb and flow than perhaps they were in the past. And those relationships are built on mutual respect, collaboration, and agreement to tackle things in a way which makes sense to that rigid discussion. We heard earlier about the new surgical team approach, which is hugely successful. And that was a collaboration that started with myself and Claire Marks many years before she was president of HEE. But those are the relationships we need to nurture. And I do think there is the other side of that is that we need to offer something that's more passion. We can't just sit back and say we commission and then we're all doing. And a big offer that will change the thinking of young doctors is the journalism. How do we create that pool of doctors who have a view around the population is the understanding of the population health, a sense of skin in the game locally, and a set of skills that they feel are doctoring skills regardless of their specialty. And that's where the pilot sites that we've got with Green Trailblazers, they're reporting this summer, and we need to make sure that doesn't fall between the schools and the next new organization, because it is the first major change in the structure of medical education since 1993. So it is a real opportunity. And just to say, we want it to look like this. It's a real shape. And I think that's our offer, as well as the constant work with stakeholders such as Royal.
We do. Okay, let's move on. Oh, sorry. Oh,
Yeah. No, I just wanted to add a note really. So Wendy, thank you for the report, but also for guiding the discussion to actually ask us to think more about the profession. So that it is not just about, process and systems and that sort of thing. It is more than that. It is all of that, of course, and of course something about us as the medical profession in this space. Also, the GMC, I think, has this is so stark that we can't go back. We can only go forward, taking this role. And then the third thing I would say is that actually this will be a chance for us in the new NHS England to really have the leaders of the combined organisation to really have this conversation and make the change happen. Because I do believe there are many, many parts of our profession, the medical profession, and in all the colleges that are ready to take this forward. So it's a good time for this work to be done.
yeah, no, it is. Particularly this issue of non-eventually the injury was it becomes normal. It's a mistake often until we can see things as well. Anything you're trying to spotlight and it's helpful. But actually, what is more helpful is the answer to the so what we do. Very good. So let's come to the stakeholder survey. Kelly, are you going to come in to the space next to Jared? So, Kelly, I'm not sure how you're going to do this, but we'll be.
Shall I lead off with Kelly that's the person who's done the real work, and I'm start by saying thank you very much for her, and that's been better than other colleagues who get a lot of times to do the interviews and conduct them, and also part of the report. I think Wendy's comment about how relationships change what happens within organisations and seeing that quickly in terms of education, but also stakeholder relationships and maintaining over a period. So this is the final survey that we've done as HEE, but very much for the time for what this means for the organisation for the education part of it. The paper is there, so I won't repeat the main points, but I think it'd be fair to say we've carried on anyway with thinking working with Chris Watson and England. We expect to be also thinking about which stakeholders do we need to continue within the new work that's currently to get that probably should be a joint enterprise with other parts of NHS England. And of course, with some of the HR areas coming in, there are some other stakeholders we want to bring into this. The two questions for the board, and really welcome colleagues' comments and input. Firstly, have we got the relationships that we think we need to maintain going forward right? I think we can divide them up amongst the new directorates parts very readily. But also, I think we very much welcome board's endorsement on this has been useful series of exercises. Can we carry them forward into the new organisation with your support? And I appreciate that this is very much what you did as a very consumer put together for them for the arena. But I think it would be very helpful to have endorsement as we approach the GMADs with something others to take the value and to build it with us, because I've been to this comments. The value and the feedback and how it's actually impacted on HE's relationships and learning focus in terms of responding to comments. That's been really important down the way you want to do business and the organisation. If you want to
I think just to emphasise, in terms of work into the daughters that are concerned, it looks like other stuff about education and energy. I think it's
Questions, comments? No? Liz, sorry.
Green said that the mention of the points of stakeholder relationships is in the letter already. So
We've been going to stuff tonight, and we've got 2 others, and we've got something that isn't in the letter.
I just thought, after you read this report, what struck me is I recognise this. Both the good and the bad and different areas that I thought that was quite encouraging actually. This is about my living experience in the last year or so.
Right.
I think just a reflection around the new organisation, really understanding because it's around stakeholder engagement and how valuable that can actually be building the partnerships and getting them as opposed to their role, but probably in the past have been more about monitoring and etc. And that I think is critical. One of the things that's critical about house tonight is a bit of apprehension about the way that NHS has perhaps engaged with the sector over time versus how HEE works. And that's actually really important to understand in terms of what this actually will achieve. It's very skilled, that's the way they
This is a public board meeting in our earlier private board meeting. The point was made by me and others that actually NHS taking on the NHSD and the HEE, for instance, becomes a service delivery organisation. It's distinct from the kind of oversight regulatory traditional organisation that it is to be. It's not that they're not services, they are services, but this is a different form of service. And in a complex multi-stakeholder environment, which is the environment, I think that education is. I don't think it's possible for any organisation to be successful unless it asks its stakeholders and its partners, are we good to do business? What do we get right? What do we not get right? And what do we need to work on to improve so we can actually be the best partner, best stakeholder we can be? Because otherwise, we're not going to deliver our purpose around education and training. If we don't have our hands on all the levers that are required to affect some of the changes that are required. So, my answer to the question, should we six continue to do this? Then I would argue, yes, we do. Whether I've got a role in that or not, it's important that we actually understand. And I would sit it alongside the next survey, which we had in the last report from when, because our end users, and it will be for NHSE activities, are the people going through training and education. The ultimate end user are members of the public who are receiving services for our activities. So our partners and stakeholders who contribute to the delivery, as well as the people who education and training, we need to know what to think, otherwise we can't do business. If we were a retail organisation, we would be segmenting that workforce, our end users in very, very fine detail to actually understand how we can best deliver that service. So I think this is essential, to be honest. Having undertaken a number of these, Kelly's point about the anxiety that sits with some of our key partners and stakeholders, so there will be a disruption to the relationships that they've enjoyed by some of the changes is a real one. I think as we go into NHS, those of us that are making that transition need to take that with us, because understanding that risk and then mitigating it is, I think, one of the opportunities that we've got. So I think it was in order to help them to do this at this time. No, we had to discuss it, should we do it, should we not do it, etc. I think it was the right decision. And I think the report to the evidence that is generated to help with that scoring and actually give us some sense of what we're to plan as we go into it.
Thank you. I'm totally support that absolutely right. I think the other thing to support the picture of the bit about, so I said, also giving back to the lifetime, the more things that we are bringing to these relationships, partnerships, and that's something that's different. Some partnerships bring expertise, and others we are being commissioned, and others we are bringing care and pastoral support, and actually being segmented about what we're doing partnership. Is perhaps something that's not usual or with the new organisation we must think on.
So for the last couple of years, we've done we took the feedback and you said we did, and we really did use it to think through. So we need to make sure that we use the feedback as part of informing how we create our new function and deliver, and then have a conversation about how we go back to those stakeholders and we report back like we did, like we have on the last.
But we made this public document. Have we already made it?
The executive summary is public with the board paper. Yes. There was a also report with the chair in terms of the will share the event to continue following in the office.
Thank you. I think it's tremendous. Kelly, thank you for everything that you did. Very, very good. Let's turn to David now, the performance report.
Thank you. This is supposed to be recorded. At this stage, we're declaring 5 under state 30 business plan objective. And the take them was the future workforce for 3 years, in particular, one groundbreaking capacity expansion. We haven't heard back from project and have only 9 starts, and we have environment process function fire. There's one nursing, and that's the average on the top program. So within nursing, we still have things on 50,000 nursing solving without the pipeline. But the longer term supply is actually having 5 slots, is why that's funding. And we have many top which is done usually on the high end. I think it's very capacity wise, we find a lot of capacity systems, these are negotiation training, or the so on which we have these. The competency station for the platform programs are possible. There's 2 policy hospitals, and so 2 intense programs for selecting vital for banking. Very demanding states, we are important. The road to the usual workforce and on the college, one round of practice, and again, we're very confident that portfolio activity and the portfolio reach will then that's as an important also. I'm confident that will convert in the next 3 years. Time to express this about finance. And making policy we are spending. But we predict that we're going to bring solid steps into responsibility and the land. We're using the forums and checking for that and suggest that we are going to get done. That's a bit of a long to make it recovery and being up down. So going at the 5 numbers, which we usually don't go so what's wrong, you probably want to pull out some of the some of the quite keys that are developing. One of them in terms of doing that really and providing making the 6,000 unit. I think on trajectory for country guidance state typically is with individual expansion and development goes forward. I think it was quite a lot of good practice bringing the digital and global. I think in terms of where we have to put people then because there's usually that screen cohorts And so it would be part of them with probably 2 handles, basically like 3, and that would be the council for just in terms of, I'm sure the German going forward, be able to continually our HEE performance on these sections and meeting towards one to make sure that it's very skills well perfectly between. So we usually going into meetings for carrying on, reasonable to carry on towards one to make sure we price up going on our radar to around some sort of
That's the point you made in the earlier meeting about the governance system. It was through that. Questions, comments? To just on the first point you made about the conversion to the ambulance, in particular around the nursing home, you said, I think if I do justice to the way you introduced it there, that mitigation actions that we put in place to whole will work through. Will you just take me through so I can understand what your thought actually means?
on nursing.
Yeah.
Well, nursing is there's several elements of nursing we can get over here. One is the broad productivity to our future supply. And obviously, whilst we only get regional 50,000 million, because we got a lot of students in training now, I think it's might next year, something.
Yeah.
The raw and future supply, which we will be through, focus on food process, is like you're talking about seeing that it's actually production of acceptance with starts, also seeing our nutrition. So it is that we have new levels to start with, basically, on the inside.
It's good back to the conversation we had in the right placing, which is to really fully understand why people are moving places and what is the impact.
Yeah, I mean, now basically it's simply around one things we want. Go through the same so
and we've got something where we, we went through this, and I think it's fair to say at the start of the process, many of the ambulants were agreed, but through the process that went through, they were these great, so I was displaying them as ambulants with spontaneous agreed members, agreeing that they were all.
Did you say what the two are that not as complicated, but we'll get through?
I don't think that's a help because they're requiring all of the possible levels to attend. And if there's any variation to that, they're going to tell them and do samples. So
that's essentially about staff being released. What was the other one? Sorry, that's the last one.
It's that's impossible. So obviously that's the biggest of goals. And if you're going to say in solvents, like something or exactly.
And that's long term, we'll put out application as well. I'm really going to show somebody else.
Yes, and you make the person usually pursuing the process to it's actually like supply pipelines in this region. But when we get in this after actually down programs and it starts.
So you're bringing that to the sort of concern and education.
And I'm sorry, also potential programs that you know the programs like this is the real.
Without making this in sort of analysis, I do wonder whether flagging the agenda, whether it's the course training and education, just picking up on some of these problems, because that's also part of the continuity of what the board, because this is us saying, these are the things we will be keeping our eye on if we've been continuing. Therefore, our advice is you keep your eye on. I couldn't get the right bus on the way. So I think we should have this not just rely on people's organisational members. That's the purpose.
I think there's two additional points to talk about. So 50,000 of subsidies are manifested in March of next year. Part of the main already on track. We've had flexibility in the program of which are internationally pension numbers, it's like to be flexible around some of those. So, as David like pointed out there, last 18 months, we've had to apply some additional treatments and assessments into the system to increase things like cases, missing essential buildings, etc., maximise opportunities around attrition from programs. I think it's fair to say, though, that whilst we are continuing not to be on track in terms of domestic supply elements, there are certain anomalies emerging from the data around the intention of the students within the system itself. So whilst broadly we've got a sort of supply of students coming into the system, whilst the COVID kind of bounce has kind of come back into a relatively normal baseline, which is still high in 2019. We are seeing some changes in student intention. So, as an example, whilst having attrition the program remains relatively stable, we are seeing an increase in those students who are slightly delayed because of some of the post-university issues. That's all been effectively managed both by the university and also by HEE. We are seeing a slight change there in students moving into the workforce. And I think it's really important to show that traditionally around 80% of our qualified students, nurses in particular, would end up working within NHS, those working quite independently in voluntary organisations. We have seen a marked reduction actually in the number of students moving into the NHS workforce, larger than we've seen in previous years. We're doing work with the DH and focus groups to understand that. And there's quite a lot of complexity in there, things like cost of living, pressures within the NHS and the workforce, whether they're going to get the support when they first qualify, etc. So we've got a really complex set of issues to handle once those students qualify, which again, we're working with Archie's anyone's team, particularly around the retention element of that, because I think it's important to understand that actually this is both a continuing human education and also into their employment. And that quick end between qualification and means of work is starting to see materially within the data. The other thing we've also noticed is a marked in some sense, it's got quite about 2%, which is huge actually in this data set, of what we call participation rate. So not only we've got some students who are not community work, choosing to put part-time first employment contract. It's very different against the demographic position. So again, the students are making some very, very savvy choices actually about where they work, why they work, how they work. But we really need to kind of explore in detail and ensure that we've got the right things in place that we employ, even though we feel valuable and it's taken to. So more work to do, but I think it's kind of useful for people to know that we've got some really interesting shifts post-COVID in relation to student.
People are completing the degrees and then entering the workforce on part-time basis and completing the degrees and not entering the workforce. It's not just not entering the NHS workforce, it's just not entering anything.
Correlates that with the NMC data, which is that we've got a large number of students who have taken their degree, taken their NMC registration, whether you have clearly been by the NHS and elsewhere. In some cases, when we've done focus groups, they're suggesting they're taking pause before entering either the NHS or their work programme, for the ability to the education. And others are looking at cost of living, which would maximise their income opportunities against wider opportunities around salary elsewhere in other sectors, where their degree becomes just as valuable to some degree. So that's an example. The police team working for the Justice Ministry achieved 70% of all of the 20,000 police officers that have been recruited in the last year actually come from the nursing. Not actively looking for nurses, but that's where they
Where it becomes a degree. And the degree is to say.
big skills that nurses don't see or decent. Absolutely.
This is describing the work that we do in the community, which they hardly want to do and not really want to work. We've got to.
Well, I was just going to say, I'd be interested in the age breakdown, what is a generation Z as opposed to millennial generation. Something like things like the choices that they're making. Some of the stuff I saw in Australia is full of, do we really understand what generation Z are doing and how that is having an impact on choices that are being made up between work-life balance?
Yes, so I think, sorry about the letter, but I think the point then to flag, if you use mental health and nursing as an example, the benefit of the dual organisation is that we've got all those levers across the piece. So you only get net growth as more people join and leave. But at the moment, we've got more people leaving than joining from end to end, from training to
So having access to all, so that's really the question for the board, not just looking at education training, but actually with everybody's you're back stuff in the least to take this. Nursing got end-to-end issues. So there's a generational, we know we can link that to the next data, we can link that to the EDI data, I'll play some all of us like learning so new, but we're going to issue around. And so that is the opportunity of the YouTubers or the new board that in the round.
And in place of the argument we had earlier about why it's important for alongside.
I'm just wondering, big definitely spoke to speak from Mark, and then the fact that you talk about nursing service and it's now just another degree in other sectors. Whether we from effectively tuition and paying relatively to like people having fees and take out the loan as actually made that happen. The part of that is it's a degree where when we pay tuition loan, it was special, they were taking paid for. We think that's why we did it.
I would say the short answer is that I think we want to make that shift into a fee-based model. I think it's quite likely the students are expecting a proposition. And interestingly, this wasn't just in the NHS. I speak to lots of colleagues who work in HEIs, and we're seeing a similar level of dynamic between students and their universities, which is around teaching, around the experience they're getting, face-to-face content, around pastoral support. So I think there's been a quite significant shift in student attitude once they've taken any fees, and that's not just I think with their employer, i.e. ultimately themselves and other social contracts that they have. So short answer is yes, I think that's definitely part of the shift that we've been seeing with students in this.
Let me come to my piece.
Well, I was more just very curious with surrounding the feature, just because it also just seems like major controls attitudes and behaviours of work. Is that really captured as part of the work and how we may respond to that? So future work for strategy really thinking about stuff like that.
Absolutely, that's his fundamental the framework. If you remember, we had that Venn diagram of we need to think about the future of care, what people from the future of work and the future of education, and we have to do all three, not one, not two, but we need three. And all the data departments talk about absolutely resources, those future work issues, and we break down the report the generation differences and gender and race issues as well that make that very, very pressing. And that is more acute in some parts of the country than others. And I can see it playing out now in cities and deadlines. So really, people that would really have that conversation.
I think many of our ICBs are again working on this issue, and where they have strong relationship with education and the local economy, and all the ingredients are right there in the moment.
Just make a comment about the importance of doing it to reverse the degree of gain and some of this bit to try sort of jump.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of change actually in people's attitudes to how long they want to learn for and how long they're going to take to learn. The whole idea of this is the long term totally any year on, year two, depending on the program, how long is the program is artificially chunking it into years, for example. Lots and lots of people open my own organisation. I've got about 6,000 students who are on variable level degrees. They can crunch it if they want, complete for 2 years, or they can take 5. And those are students who will not, particularly if they're more mature, which historically a lot of students going into nursing are more mature, and a bit more flexibility about when they complete and how they complete. So at the moment, what we are seeing in younger people is they want a bit more freedom and choice about how long their course takes, how quickly they can do it, and how shortly they can do it. And that flexibility, now that's a huge challenge for a regulated environment to flex on it. We are seeing that when we give that opportunity, more students stay with the program. Because actually to them to manage their time more. At the moment they're still saying you do this, you do that, and you do this, and you do that. It's a challenge.
think it's a challenge unless we're responsible. We're going to deliver the workforce we need. You just look at some of the financial effects about how people are adapting to working from home versus being in the office, and how you can't find the flexibilities to actually
So, sorry,
retain diverse talent. Basically.
if I give you another example, so what we're seeing is a massive growth. When years ago, we used to do an HRC or HMD integration. Every year when you're an HMC or the qualification, you go and do something. And you do 2 year HMD, you do more, and then year 3. You know, if you're on a program that says you don't get your ability to do anything to the it's a very different attitude to somebody building a qualification, allowing them to have competencies which allow them to deliver and see their career progressing. The moment with a lot of degrees is a start and an implement, and you're looking in between.
Very good. Okay. We're a long way from the that conversation. Thanks for that, bit. Let's move on then, Callum. Let's move on to the next.
Yeah, just quickly. I think pretty many points to make really. As you can see, you can see actually playing out some of the things we've been talking about in the financial results, these events possible, including it's not really happens to reach. I would expect these trends to continue through to end of the year, but on the positive side, regional directors, monitor this position and use they can to invest in existing workforce and local government to compensate for absences and certainly numbers. You see that in the figures, that means that we will be just under our budget for the year and sort of forecast we expect some of the normal variabilities that we could affect, but they're not bringing us untoward or unusual in previous years. I should also just comment on really thoughts now. Agreeing on level of funding on drawdowns managed in England, which we could be resolved and change to reflect that on England from the fund strategy then. So all the assumptions we make so far of the year basically we would those get established from resolved from so that's very odd stage. The left side is positive. We've also been this before, understanding business agreements, which I was there and give you detail on these. But it's to draw the board's attention to the fact that these essentially, I think, we should be falling up in the so we thought it was to really transcribe that was even before that stage. It's about that necessarily focus on videos. And you will see them there, but what we're trying to do is set out a little bit of like facts for each thing. Ideally, we want to see probably like we will do so. And I just think but read with the exception of one, which is fully stated error. We've got strong business reasons. One, we don't take risk though. We did to go into consideration reads scores and so forth. So we've set out detail. I think it's good for that one. Those I would say more questions around it. On a positive note, I just actually like to thank Karen Rutter, who is actually why that she writes the thoughts and essentially why we just managing to always get that position during the year. It's been a great job this year. She's having service with our clients at the end of the year. So lucky having them service with ladies and gentlemen.
Questions, comments? So I think this is all. couple of queries. Paragraph 1 talks about budgets yet to be distributed. Can you just have the yet to be distributed, given we're at 110?
So I think that would be not the, I don't think it's been drawn down rather than.
Okay. And then still on undergraduate medical and dental, what's the reason for that?
Well, this is a very good question. So I think it's really unusual in previous years to get on step with only going up to about this, used to be a big story. So I think it goes back to the conversation we've been having about use expectation, whether it's possibilities, living factors in there, but it's something that we are working with when we've been very much looking at. We've done that not possible, but I'm certainly not be able to do it. So I think it's definitely an area of obviously like yield a lot.
I think people are dropping out.
It's unclear whether it's actual. I think it's unclear to draw out whether it's something to do with the budget's being built up for the returns same way the previous resources to be replaced when placements are being planned into programs. I think there's a number of sort of
Or a combination of lots of
things.
It could also be the delay credit may want to be taken into place to be assessed. And which is not such thing. We're going to different message on times that may be disconnected. But it's a different funding line, so they may not be multiple questions which started discussion. And remember that considering that without it, we assume that during periods, you may be able to complete them because of the restriction in laboratory time loss of things. So there are a number of variables that the student.
but there's work going on to get this understanding. Green's going in for something to time to not
So, I mean, I would want to just state again the risk of qualified account. It closed down virtually, and which is quite distressing. But
look on this. I think actually in 10 years we've not had qualified accounts. In fact, I look at John's like here. If I look at the audit reports that come through during my time, I've seen more higher rate of internal audit reports in this organisation than any other organisation I've worked in. That makes sense, but nevertheless, what was reflected on is a very high level of financial performance for the organisation. I'm very clear in my own mind that one of the reasons for one of the major changes the Secretary of State made a decision to merge HEE to NHS and set a timetable to do that in order to take the work that was necessary to affect that transition. We needed additional capacity. That could only be achieved through going to the external market, which is what we did. That's why this is. So I'm very supportive of the decision to recur this expenditure. I was consulted for that, and it's very clear this is something that was necessary to do. Whether those approvals came through in the right way. I think this organisation has a very, very, very good track record of actually managing within the fiscal rules that were set. So managing public money. This wasn't down to negligence. It was a very deliberate back to actually get it done. I hope as a board we can support that. While we've got into this in the end. So it is potentially accounts. So I think it would be unfair final accounts of this organisation that it's involved in this sort of we've not got reasonable mechanism, but we by conference decision that this was necessary.
And that's really probably why you were part of the board. So that's
Yeah.
and so I'm absolutely behind this. So I guess my question is, And I believe it was absolutely necessary. What's the evidence that we have that it's absolutely necessary? We need to make sure we have that in place as a part of the plan. Yeah, go on.
So we have actually presented all of the evidence and what the value and the outcomes for approval, and it has been accepted, but we cannot get that perspective.
There's nothing more we can do. Let others, we've done everything we've got. So clear decision making, it's clear board support. Oh, thanks. We wish Karen success. So transition program. Welcome.
So, most of all, there's a quite comprehensive paper in the tab. It covers a range of programs that you have reported on for the last probably 9 months now. Rather than go through the paper, I'm quite happy to receive any questions and discussion. If I may just say, I think the thank you though at the beginning, if I forget at the end, just thank you to the team. There's a number of people behind the scenes who work really hard in the various aspects of the programme, so we thank you to all of them.
I'd echo that, and thanks to you as well. The attention to detail throughout this process has been quite remarkable. So a number of the people in your team that contributed to this, Shimon, Emma, and myself in the etc. In particular, thanks, and also thanks to the biggest team in HR. It's gone on. It's constantly, as I say, the attention to detail is quite remarkable. Thank you very much. Questions, comments? So can I invite you to say something about timescale? So this is a public meeting, and I'd like a better understanding of timescales as they affect health education England staff who will not know by the 1st of April where they're going to go. And I'd just be interested in on the public record that we could have something about that. I'd also welcome, and Vicky, I don't know whether you want to come in on this as well, to say something about where we're up to with the first wave of the redundancy offer, because of even the HEE staff that are involved in that. My particular anxiety is that those HEE staff are clear when they will know where they're going. If they don't know, they know. Some do, some don't, right? So that's your understanding of that time scale. And what the perspective is from the board level. But if I was 2 years into my employment in HEE, what would I understand about what happens to me next? Things what I'm trying to get next.
I'll start and I'll have to be. So, in terms of the timeline, I think one of the most important areas that we've worked on really hard, and it's thanks to Shane and others, in terms of the data. We've worked really hard to make absolutely clear that we know which of our staff in Health Education England are going to which part of the new NHS England designs, whether that's a national directorate or regional directorate. That has been a huge amount of work to make sure we're absolutely clear who's in scope, which area of business, so that they know now which consultation they will be part of moving forward. Those consultations have obviously begun with the national consultation for the national budget. Some of our staff are included in the other consultations already launched, that's for the new vaccination directorate and new traffic directorate. The others there is a timetable that is going from those that have already started right the way through to June. The latest edition is that the latest consultation to start in June, and staff know that. It's a communication that went out before last 2 regions, but we'll confirm that and 2 other corporate comments. So I think we're confident now that we understand and we know who's in which scope.
use them, clarify which consultation when those consultations will start. As we transfer over to NHS England from the 1st of April, we make sure that staff know what changes in terms of day one readiness, so who they will report to, if they've got any problems, what they do, and what the pastoral care will be taken, and continuation. So I think we're quite behind this, that we have a level of detail now that we should do our staff. We'll know what's going to happen to them first of April, but actually we also already know which consultation when that work at the moment we can start.
I will do not.
Which
Given we're on the 20th of March now, first of April is one.
yeah. So we already know which consultation we're going to be part of.
Yeah.
So we confirm that. And we have had sort of movement because, throughout the process, one of the purposes of the consultation was to make sure the staff had the opportunity to start to challenge and say, I think if you've been part of that, national question, you're part of that. So some of that hasn't really happened. From the 1st of April, the proposals and change has happened in the transformation book to NHS Digital moving into NHS England. And that's where it is clear that an entire, if you like, hierarchy of a particular function can move safely to its new home. So that might be some elements in finance, it might be some elements in communication. Then they can move. Anywhere where it's not clear, we say under the responsibility of Marina in a new role as the chief working education officer for NHS England. And those staff therefore will ensure that they're supported as we move forward to consultation, and then they will move as part of the end point of their consultation. So staff will know where they're going to land. Most of them know already, I would say.
Are there any of the managers that will be subject to VR where they'll leave before sort of is a discussion?
And that is why we need to, we have a position, we have a people impact assessment that needs to be run through again once we understand which staff will be leaving us during VR, and then we make sure that we pick up any gaps and have that support in place. Right. If you want to add that VR.
Yeah, just a couple of headlines. So overall, there were over 1,700 applications across the two organisations. We had over 300 applications. We had a process where we controlled a part of the process and moved over to colleagues in NHS England, and we approved, in principle, 86% of the applications that we received. And where we didn't approve, it was because the application was ineligible, didn't satisfy the criteria, or because colleagues were sitting on an exemption list that had been pre-agreed. Every colleague has now received a letter indicating whether or not their application is being accepted or rejected with a proposed lead date for the organisation, and they've been asked to accept that within 5 working days. So once they have accepted their offer for those that were successful, they will then receive their financial figures in the form of a settlement agreement, and at that point it becomes binding. At the moment when they accept, it's just an acceptance in principle, so they don't have that kind of figures.
But they've got an indication.
They've got an indication, you can calculate it, but there's all sorts of intricacies and tax laws and stuff that's beyond my wit. But
all right, very good. I mean, there's lots more of this report, as I think, I think that's for the next signatures. So my questions were just about our responsibilities to the issues. Are you signaling?
So obviously I've got people going to lots of different bits of the world, and possibly with consultation they're in. We're doing lots of work on just reassuring people, and I think people are reassured by the short-term management. Don't take on first that it's not going to change, and actually the consultations as when things change up until when we carry on whilst playing nicely with the new people and making sure it works as much as possible. But one thing that I'm interested to know about, which is still slightly concerning, is I think we're actually pretty close to being maximum danger. on the basis that we won't have an organisation in place in terms of structures, but people are leaving, and what I mean, a lot of people saying, well, can we backfill and cover people leaving, please? And I'm saying, well, no, we've got to actually manage it until new structures in place. When new structures are in place, when we conversation of what would you do with 30, 40, odd percent less, I don't think we've had that conversation yet about what we would do with 18% less, 22% less as people leave. So I think there's a real need in this period to be as flexible as we can with each other and recognise that some things will have to stop, even if they're not going formally for a process, purely because people have to sleep. So we just make sure we're all in that space and let's just take some about it.
I think it just needs to be transparent about it. We want people to do the work. Well, you can't get done. It's straight transaction.
I think that's just reinforce what Louise just said. Certainly in my area of IT, although we don't be reducing by 35% in terms of HEE spend, we've still got 5,000 educators to support. So from an IT perspective, their workload is not reducing in the same amount. And of course, people will leave if they're wanting to go into the organisation, and we know IT people are hard to recruit. So it is an issue about how to make sure that people understand that they won't be getting the IT service that they're being used to. As we move, and we'll try very hard to make sure that we keep the service going. So at the moment, I'm confident we're keeping the service going, but I think he's right to just raise that as a concern.
Yeah, so like all these things, I would ask they're raising the concern, they also would address all the mitigation.
And we're putting those things in place.
As a board, I think we've been really good at not just collecting problems and polishing them, but actually saying this is an issue, this is what we're going to do.
Oh yeah, no, just to say that, I mean, part of the work was to keep really assessing how we're delivering the business we must deliver, and then we will work together. You've seen the leadership across the organisation to look for backfill if we absolutely need that. Because it's business critical. And I think, some of the support, IT support for educators is business critical. So we will be, we will definitely have got systems for
Slightly different point, but if I may, just to update colleagues, the parliamentary process for clearing the regulations is in the paper, but it's shifted us slightly. The second delegation, delegated legislation committee, the problem deals with as announced tonight, but the launch debate will be in the main chamber tomorrow. Okay.
Excellent. So it's not all sorted today.
That's tomorrow, we should know by then.
Will there be enough parliamentary excitement towards the end of the week? So let's get this through. Rather than okay, Philippa, thank you. I really do want to pay tribute to you personally as well. You and I have had catch-up meetings, and I've done, in my career, I've done 2 of these big transitions from one organisation to really big increase. I think you've been quite outstanding, so thanks for you. Right, where does that take us? Lee and Nicola, board and committee business transition. Release.
Secretary, it's empty.
Okay, thanks. Take time. So I mean, it gets to the end of HE, I think it's just appropriate that you close down our board assurance framework. Each of the committees over the last 6 weeks or so has been looking at the aspects of the back that they have responsibility for and giving an indication of the end of year assurance ratings they want to attribute to them. So that's included at Annex A. I have a couple to update from the quality committee. You have given substantial ratings to all the aspects that they are responsible for. Of edits to make there. The backlog of various other documents part of the attention officer and over assurance letter, which Navina and I are going through again tomorrow, and you'll be filed in this committee next Monday. Within that, we all reference the profit risk register and how we're closing that down. As John mentioned, we spoke to Jeremy Tannend last week about that. and where each of the risk and alcohol is registered will be going to the
And to remind me, just the letter we're sending to Richard, capture exactly that. So that's almost a paragraph. And I'm not planning to do this in real time. Do you think the conversation we've had today is reflected in the way the annex to this report is captured? Would there be any amendments you want to make to the language it's using, given some of the things? Because we've kind of done the consultation with the report in real time, which you've got to
we have
on the letter.
committee meetings as well. On what suggested was the church-based environment, which got to how the organisation is put on. So that's the reason why we put.
What assurance we get.
Yeah.
Church reason for this
reasonable significant take back. Not sure about it. We've put in the spot.
Well, personally, I thought it was significant. I think this has been a very orderly and transparent board. Doesn't mean there aren't stuff going wrong somewhere. There is in any organisation stuff going on. There'll be stuff that isn't quite well to it, and there'll be stuff that is going in absolutely. I think they did took us through that with the performance reports and sort of calm the fines. I think we've had a very open and honest way of reporting as things have gone. We've been very open in reporting that, and it has been something we should have done that was not. It's a whole fact as well. We use social media. That's what I've done.
So from the family speak for the executive side of this board, if I think of the three areas from non-executive that we require, that's to give you assurance and for you to have assurance, scrutiny and support when we get those the three areas I would be looking for, both at board level, at committee level, and extraordinary support as well. I'd say improve reflect that needs to be.
Repeat. Right. We object to that. And the handover committees and allocation of business in committees that exist or creative and just
That's all in hand, and I'm involved with that. Our committees have all agreed end of year report, which we'll give to NHS England and Northern Farm, the final annual report accounts from HEE. And that will go to the training education committee to the certain aspects taken out of it that HEE specific, but the reviews want to continue to this line.
Very good. All right. That takes us on to culture the best place to work. And the report item 11 is the best place to work. Progress report is really ridiculous. So these name appears and you stand it off to get the order.
So I don't want to say too much more because it's all laid out in the report. And thanks to Shane and Sam behind me who actually produced that. Safe to say that I think we know both instinctively that Best Place to Work has been a brilliant approach to culture and people improvement. But we also know that through the data that it's in the you can see there's so much input, but importantly you can see that a lot of the data, which normally in times of change would go down, is holding steady. And I think it circles back to the data earlier, David, about engagement staying at that 74% level is quite incredible. It dropped to just a few percentage points, but I think that's testament to all the work that's gone on. And I think Best Place to Work has been an amazing methodology to allow that work to happen.
Questions, comments?
Right. Well, there's just one, I think, just to that, maybe, discuss more about how do we take some of that sort of normalization for this really useful, because again, it's actually work that's been done.
Yeah, so there's lots of us from lots of different vantage points having those conversations into the organisation. We do know already that in the people department, directorate improvement plan, and we're talking to colleagues who've been running that about utilising the best of SPSD work and the best of the methodology that they've been using and going in that way. So I think it's not a matter of one conversation, I think it's multiple conversations. And actually, when we get the other side and we really look at the strategy for people and culture, at that point is the one we will come in and I think proposing methodologies such as this one. Whether or not we'll be able to keep the cycle, I don't know. But I think the approach is great. I want to say just one more thing, because I've done a lot of this in lots of different sectors. What's beautiful about Best Place to Work is it allows the bubbling up of things that can be done at directorate and regional level, but still with an oversight at a central level. So you combine those two things. It's the best. It's the best of everything. I think that's why it works. Still allow that organic nature and energy that comes with local initiatives and the corporate initiatives joined together. So I think it's great.
And I think that point you just made is hugely important. It provides the embryo of the leadership of initiatives to be taken, so it allows all initiatives to rise.
I think that's to commend the organisation and actually particularly on the best areas of work that I've seen, which really shows quite clearly that staff are valued, staff are engaged, and staff have a voice, which is not always the case in a number of organisations. And I want to make your letter more and that how powerful staff are. So networks need to be kept up because in terms of the experience of this organisation, certainly in this digital, they were probably a lot slower, but their networks really started to work in their these things. And that's what's the inclusion of gender. You know, I think we've done so much in a very short period of time, which has created a momentum. And I think that we're going to be benefits and actually seeing that it's like leveraging of results is it has to be. And whether NHS in life is a lot, that they very much need to step between with the NHS. The provider sector is emerging this season. Means to bring technologies.
So just to back up what I said, I think it's a great program. As the original SRL, I think the thing that we did that made the real difference to the beginning was take advantage of moving away from then working, which is all online. So the meetings we had about the program were open to all. Anybody in the organisation who want to come along to this committee and talk about what's happening, look at the program, look at the results, suggest things that we do differently, was invited. The reason we did it, 100-200 people could just come and do the meeting. And I think that really did set the tone for the whole thing. That really talking about instead of being able to manage it in a really clear way that had accountability for the work, accountability for the money we spent, that was really focused for what the board asked us to do, but also just give people the opportunity to go, actually, I think you try this. And I think that was those two major benefits.
So 3 points to make. First is that picking up on the word momentum, Soraya, I think it has momentum, so it can't stop. So that's the first thing to say. It really can't stop. Second thing is that actually there is a lot of interest in what we can do in it, and it being incorporated. The third thing to say is that actually we're quite interested in what is happening in NHS England and NHS Digital as well. So it is going. The tricky bit is going to be trying to pick the best out of 3 different, or 4 or 5, 15 different ways of doing things and putting them all together. So I think it is going to be quite a busy space, but I don't think this is going to stop.
So I agree with you on the importance of the controls. If we'd have been in any existence, like the same, so when you were given the exit, and when you were given the exit time. And one of the private sector organisations I talked to was championing having engagement scores at 92%. So actually, I think we should have that kind of ambition, because actually this is saying 1 in 4 if not engaged. That is an awful lot of talent and capacity that's not using. I think the danger is that we normalise our competitors. So, got to have more ambition and doing better than the product communities in the world.
Like I said, you did take a decision. There was a debate before. Is it the best place to work? Is the best place to work in the NHS? It should just be in the NHS. We had that conversation.
We didn't. So I don't want to puncture what is an absolute tremendous performance, but I do want to say that actually, again, it's not can some of this stuff survive in a different environment, it's can it thrive and push on to the next level. It's just keep that sense of Vicky, I'd also like to say thank you to you for the work that you've done in the HR field to actually really because as this report demonstrates, a lot of what we've done is just think about how do we be able to employ what's employment, how can we be flexible and creative. That thing is just really into systems and processes, policies and facilities. I think that is a really small part. It's a supply side in this, and this is a much demonstration of the leadership of the management and leadership because we know that everything wasn't as well in that section as it needed to. I think. If there's no more on that, then can we come to item 12, which I don't know, there's nobody else's name you can give this to.
So basically, so you remember these from at various meetings over the year about we wanted the last meeting this morning public to recognise what we had done as a section. And to have a certain sort of celebration, recognising something locally very sad about what's coming in the next 10, 12 days. And part of that is because actually we did some really, really good things that made a real difference to real people as an organisation. So what we would attempt to do here is, I mean, I'm sure the use of what they've done for us, for those of you with a certain age of movement to Python, I think it was a step and maybe took out, so you know. So thank you for that. But what we did is we went through and did it year by year, some of the things we've done over those years on a year-by-year basis. The two things that jumped out at me from that actually are the sheer breadth of things we did. You know, and I remember, sorry, called up, but when we first were created, I was in the SHA, my chief executive at the time, in a sort of gently manner, said, so you do education training, so what are you doing afterwards? Which I think is happening. But actually, if you look at the stuff we've done as an organisation, it's actually amazing. And the other thing that jumps out at me about, apart from scope, is you can see that as the years go on, more and stuff fruition and more and more stuff happens. So I'm sort of looking at this as a board paper. I think take responsibility for the fact that other people had loads more stuff going on in here. But in a similar way to the issue talking over the letter, we had to make it so that it was readable and wasn't too long. So hence reason that not everything's in here. But also that's allied to the infographic, which shows in numbers what we've done. And I'm not too close to accurate because I've broken digital first rules. And we do have a paper copy of the infographic people can fund to take home the frame or whatever we do this. So I think that does show, and which we say, we'll probably say later in the event as well, despite, issues around the workforce crisis and vacancies and that sort of thing, every single year of HEE has been a net growth in NHS staff. And we've delivered numbers against the backdrop of huge budgets, which we talk about as well. So, what I've put at the end here, I'll turn it into a report to say that the board may I take this opportunity to thank colleagues of the organisation. We worked with them for 10 years, those who are still in it, those who've left, those who've been in since the beginning, those who have been recent. Actually, everyone made their contribution to actually something as an organisation to be proud of, and that's what spent 10 years doing. This means that it's to improve.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Yeah, it's very engaging today, right? Anyway, it's me that's not chatting. I go around you all. Anyway, go on.
So I really said it really well. I think it's a kind of community thing. And it's actually big, even more user friendly. It's all the markets we work with. In the education sector, in the NHS, in other departments, the FE, etc. So, it's I think it's very, very cool for the manual. It's incredibly important for us. This is really just what we've got to take.
Yeah.
I think it was really what the plan is to disseminate it. Are we sending it to the schools and quality?
There's this, so obviously it's on the website already, it's in the public domain. We will use an infographic and social media as well. We have attachments for people who send to the board, the infamous. So we catch that as well. I haven't thought about sending it to the minister, but I'm sure we could do that if it's good.
And not just the, I think the narrative that precedes the infographic, you need to also integrate.
We'll attach both of them.
Yeah. I think we should just switch to that. After we finish the second.
Yeah, so while this is fantastic, I think just a word of caution. I think I don't think we should be reduced just to the numbers, and that's one of the risks with this approach. You can't possibly put in future doctors, all the thinking stuff isn't in there. And that I recognise why, absolutely, and you want a one pager like this. But I think the narrative that we have a responsibility to take forward is around the thinking, the leadership, and the collaboration that's required to get to anything like these numbers. Because otherwise we will just be reduced to a numbers production unit. And that may have been people wanted from it, it's certainly not what they got. We got more than that. So I think there's something on how we use this in the future. It's really powerful.
Anybody else?
I do agree with you, but I think there's also a discipline to be saying actually if you invested in workforce, we can continue to build on tangible outputs. And some of these people, if we treat them while at work, will remain resistant for 30, 40 years. So this is a quantifiable legacy. If they go in any other health organisation, they typically quantify their outputs. And you have to quantify the outputs so clearly. If we get the investment required, it's actually not to be significant.
I want to say something.
I just wanted to say I've only been 3 years, 3 and a bit years now. But it felt when I joined that we often felt that we were sort of slightly either outside the room or on the fringes, and kind of afterthought in thinking about the NHS. But I think circumstances are such, but also our contribution is such, that the time is absolutely right for us to be right there at the table, not at the centre of it, making the right kind of noises and being really bold and supporting our colleagues to be really bold. So we have a real opportunity to do it, and we've got a bit of work to do ourselves to not be thinking about what we know and what we hear.
So I think that this is good. I wonder whether there's the opportunity when messages around this going out, actually there could be something, some of the message can be about what it was about the way we work, the way we was about the success, which is about being allowed to stay, it's about playing with our star. It is about thinking outside the box and thinking and building the expertise, whether it can sort of putting in some of the that way, which enables that has been.
That's effectively the point that I was making. I think the narrative around it has changed. The families actually, so I think this is again two parts. I think it's the first 5 years where I think Italy was really criticised, and I think this last 5 years really which was established as a system of knowledge purposes. To do, but I think that's a trade-off. So Wendy's point of view of is this a perception in the document, or is this a record of achievements? I think there's achievements. And it's for others, I think, to talk about perceptions. You said but I think we should use it, particularly in the use video, because I thought it was terrifically captured by the experience that left there. But it's really big essence. There's no more on that, Lee. Thank you for that. I thought the graphic was terrific. Yeah. So that brings us to the end. I think, Patrick, your reports of information and awareness and capture work that you and your team sort of undertaking for a period of time. So thank you. I'm not notified of any of this. Is there any of this? Okay. So let me formally close the meeting. Thanks very much. That's ending.